Hello, and welcome. It's March 11th, 2026, and just 4 hours ago, at precisely 8 UTC, something unimaginable happened. The laws of celestial mechanics, as we know them, were broken. Imagine the moon, our ever-present companion for 4.5 billion years, sitting 238,900 miles away, in a stable orbit. But as of this morning, that number no longer holds true. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter has confirmed an astonishing data point that has a probability of 0% of being natural. In the span of just 6 hours, the moon has been pulled 2,000 miles closer to Earth. Let that sink in for a moment. To move an object with a mass of 73 quintillion tons so quickly requires an unimaginable amount of energy, far exceeding the entire nuclear arsenal of Earth by a factor of 10 million. This is not a mere orbital drift. This is a force migration, and the consequences are already being felt. Right now, at this very moment, tide gauges in New York, Mumbai, and Tokyo are registering surges, waves rising 40 feet above the historical maximum. We are witnessing something extraordinary. A 40-foot wall of water defying tide tables, surging because the very source of our tides, the moon itself, has been dragged closer by a gravitational force that should not exist. When I first saw the telemetry data from the Artemis FI command module, I thought it was a glitch. Every physicist, including myself, would expect that objects don't just accelerate without a force. But then, I looked closer at the source of the pull. It wasn't the sun. It wasn't a rogue planet. It was 3I Atlas, an object we initially thought was just a comet passing through. But it seems that this comet has latched onto our moon. NASA's Deep Space Network in Canberra, Australia, picked up a gravitational wave signature at 8:15 UTC. It wasn't the result of a collision, it was a wave caused by a sudden mass injection. Imagine 3I Atlas suddenly becoming 10,000 times heavier than a black hole, even if just for a brief moment, acting like a cosmic magnet. Physics, as we understand it, does not allow for such a phenomenon. You simply cannot create gravity out of nothing. General relativity tells us that gravity is the curvature of space-time caused by mass, and to pull the moon 2,000 miles in 6 hours, 3I Atlas would need the mass of a neutron star. But if it had that much mass, Earth would have been torn apart instantly. And yet, here we are. The Earth is still intact, but the moon is falling. This is no longer a theoretical exercise. This is a planetary emergency. The data I'm about to share defies everything we've been taught in astrophysics textbooks. It challenges the very foundations of what we believe is possible. If 3I Atlas can move the moon, what happens when it turns its attention toward Earth? To understand the magnitude of what happened at 8 UTC today, we need to examine the raw data. When a celestial body as large as the moon moves, it doesn't do so quietly. The first warning didn't come from a telescope. It came from the ocean. At 8:02 UTC, the automated tide gauge at the Battery in New York City sent a red flag alert to NOAA headquarters. The water level wasn't just rising, it was rising at a rate of 4 feet per minute, a tsunami-level surge, but without an earthquake. At the same time, halfway across the world, the port of Mumbai reported a sea level retreat so severe that ships were grounded instantly, only to be hit by a returning wall of water minutes later. This was the first physical confirmation of the anomaly. But the scientific explanation came from 3 independent sources that simply do not make mistakes. First, let's take a look at the Lunar Laser Ranging Retroreflector experiment. Since the Apollo missions, we've been bouncing lasers off mirrors left on the lunar surface to measure the distance to the moon with millimeter precision. For decades, that distance has averaged 238,855 miles, but at 8:10 UTC, the Apache Point Observatory in New Mexico fired their laser, and something extraordinary happened. The light returned significantly faster than usual. The data confirmed that the moon was suddenly 2,000 miles closer to Earth. Pause for a moment and realize the implications of this. If the moon had naturally spiraled inward by 2,000 miles, it would have taken millions of years of orbital decay. But 3I Atlas forced that decay in just minutes. One data point could be an error, but in science, we demand verification. And verification came from two additional independent sources. The second source of confirmation came from ESA's Gaia spacecraft, which maps the positions of 1 billion stars. Gaia's astrometry data is considered the gold standard for celestial positioning. At 8:12 UTC, ESA, Mission Control in Darmstadt, Germany, flagged a catastrophic navigational error. They initially believed their satellite had drifted. It hadn't. Gaia confirmed the Apache Point laser data. The moon's angular diameter had increased by 0.8% instantaneously. The moon was physically larger in the sky because it was physically closer to us. This wasn't just a slight shift, it was a significant alteration in the moon's position. And then came the third and most crucial confirmation, directly linking this event to 3I Atlas. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, LRO, currently orbiting the moon, detected a gravitational anomaly that defies the standard model of physics. The LRO's accelerometers picked up a vector pull as if a massive gravitational force had suddenly appeared out of nowhere. For exactly 180 seconds, a gravitational source emerged directly behind the moon, pulling it toward Earth. Astrophysicists traced the vector of that pull, and it led them to one specific point in the night sky, the exact current position of 3I Atlas. The numbers don't lie. NASA's Deep Space Network confirmed the triangulation, ESA's Gaia confirmed the shift, and the Apache Point lasers confirmed the distance. Three independent sources, using different methodologies, all reached the same conclusion. 3I Atlas didn't just pass by the moon, it reached out and manipulated its orbit. But here's where the physics becomes even more disturbing. If 3I Atlas is indeed a comet, as we initially classified it, its mass is roughly equivalent to Halley's Comet, just a dirty snowball of ice and rock. Such an object would have negligible gravity, far too little to even move a grain of sand off the moon's surface, let alone drag the entire moon 2,000 miles out of orbit. To generate the force required to move 73 quintillion tons of lunar rock that quickly, 3I Atlas would need to be as dense as a neutron star, a density millions of times greater than Earth itself. But if it were that dense, the consequences would be catastrophic. If an object with the mass of a neutron star entered our solar system, the planets would be flung out of their orbits in an instant. Earth would have been stripped of its atmosphere days ago. So, we are left with a paradox, a scientific impossibility. 3I Atlas is behaving like a ghost mass. Somehow, it has projected a gravitational field that is far stronger than its physical size should allow. It acted as if it were heavy for the moon, but light for Earth. Think about the precision required here. Gravity, as we understand it from Einstein, is a universal force. It pulls on everything equally. It doesn't pick and choose. You cannot focus gravity like a laser beam. And yet, the data from the LRO shows exactly that a focused gravitational beam, the pull was directional. It grabbed the moon, dragged it closer, and then, just as quickly, it turned off. At 8:30 UTC, the poles ceased, and the moon found itself stranded in this new, closer orbit. The tides are locked in this high water state, and the gravitational constant has returned to normal. But what does this mean? This behavior implies something terrifying. It suggests that what we are witnessing is not a natural occurrence, but an interaction. The forces that are at play are beyond anything we have ever observed in nature. This isn't just a gravitational anomaly, it's a deliberate manipulation of space, time itself. And if you think a 4.0-foot tide is the worst of it, the seismic data coming from the moon paints an even darker picture. To understand what 3i Atlas just did to our moon, we need to dive deeper into the concept of gravity. Isaac Newton gave us the universal law of gravitation, stating that every object in the universe attracts every other object with a force proportional to their mass. It's a simple equation, elegant in its simplicity. However, 3i Atlas has just violated this equation. If you input the known mass of 3i Atlas, roughly 2.2 trillion kilograms, into Newton's formula, the gravitational force it exerts on the moon should be negligible. It would be like a fly landing on an elephant, almost zero. Yet, we've just seen a fly pull an elephant 2,000 miles across a room. So, how do we explain this? There are only two possibilities in physics. The first possibility is that the standard model of cosmology is wrong, that we've missed something fundamental about how gravity works at large scales. But this doesn't add up, especially when you consider that the moon's motion is highly localized. The second possibility is far more disturbing. 3i Atlas is not what we think it is. Let's explore the second possibility. In theoretical physics, we often discuss exotic matter, matter with negative mass, something that could warp space-time in ways that normal matter cannot. If we had a chunk of exotic matter the size of a bowling ball, it could theoretically create a gravitational well deep enough to distort light, bend time, and, yes, move a moon. But here's the catch. Exotic matter is purely hypothetical. We've never seen it, we've never created it, and yet we might just be witnessing it now. The data from the yellow rose gravimetric sensors shows something impossible. When the moon moved 2,000 miles, it didn't just slide, it fell. Imagine placing a heavy bowling ball on a trampoline. The ball creates a dip, and that dip represents gravity. Now, imagine 3i Atlas suddenly creating a dip in the fabric of space-time right next to the moon, a dip so deep that the moon had no choice but to fall into it. This requires density, and infinite density. To create a gravitational well that strong, 3i Atlas would need to compress the mass of Jupiter into a sphere the size of Manhattan. That's the density of a neutron star. But here's the problem. If 3i Atlas were that dense, the tidal forces would have torn the moon apart. The side of the moon facing the object would be pulled much harder than the far side, and the moon would have been stretched into a long stream of debris. But that didn't happen. The moon moved as a solid unit, and all 73 quintillion tons shifted in unison. This suggests something even stranger, a uniform gravitational field. Nature doesn't work that way. Gravity, as we know it, is always a gradient. It's always stronger, closer to the source of the force. To create a uniform field, you would need technology. You would need a way to manipulate the graviton, the theoretical particle that carries the force of gravity. This suggests that we are dealing with a level of technology far beyond anything we've imagined. We're talking about a Type 2 civilization, a civilization capable of harnessing the entire energy output of a star. The data from the LRO makes me think of the Alcubierre drive, a theoretical warp drive. The concept behind the Alcubierre drive is that you can contract space in front of you and expand it behind you to move faster than light. What 3i Atlas did to the moon is a low-speed version of that moving the moon by essentially deleting the space between itself and the moon. The 2,000 miles that once existed between the moon's old orbit and its new position, those miles are gone. They've been folded. This explains why the tides rose so quickly. The water didn't have time to adjust. The ocean floor literally shifted underneath the water column. The Pacific Ocean suddenly found itself 2,000 miles closer to a gravitational source, and the water reacted instantly. Now, let's talk about the energy required to fold space like that. The energy signature detected at 8 UTC, exactly when the shift began, was unlike anything we've seen before. The swift gamma-ray burst mission picked up a spike of high-energy radiation coming from 3I Atlas. But this wasn't just a random spike, it was a coherent pulse. The frequency of the pulse was precisely 1.42 GHz. For those familiar with SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, this frequency is significant. It's the spin-flip frequency of neutral hydrogen. It's also known as the water hole, a universal frequency that physicists have long speculated an advanced civilization might use to communicate or, in this case, manipulate. The pulse lasted for exactly the duration of the moon's shift. When the moon settled into its new orbit, the pulse stopped. Coincidence? In physics, there are no coincidences, especially not with a 9 sigma statistical significance. What we are witnessing is a clear cause and effect. The pulse was the trigger, the gravity was the mechanism, and the moon was the target. But why move the moon? Why expend such an immense amount of energy that could power our entire civilization for 1 million years, just to bring a satellite 0.8% closer to its planet? The answer lies in the implications of changing a moon's orbit. When you move a moon, you don't just change the distance between it and the planet. You change the planet itself. You alter the length of the day. You affect the stability of the planet's axial tilt. You change the climate. By pulling the moon 2,000 miles closer to Earth, 3I Atlas has increased the tidal friction on Earth. This friction acts as a brake on Earth's rotation. The result? Days will get longer, but not by much at first, maybe a millisecond per year. However, the cumulative effect of this on our weather systems will be catastrophic. The jet streams will destabilize. Ocean currents will shift. The delicate balance that has allowed humanity to thrive for the past 10,000 years is now being recalibrated, and we didn't get a vote. But if you think the atmospheric consequences are the worst of it, you need to see what's happening inside the moon itself, because you cannot drag a solid rock that size without breaking something deep inside. The Apollo seismometers, which were deactivated decades ago, are silent. But the new Artemis sensors, placed just last year, are screaming. The moon is ringing like a bell. The frequency of that ringing tells us something profound. The moon's core has shifted. The center of mass is no longer in the center of the moon. Let me put this into perspective. Imagine spinning a perfectly balanced top. It spins smoothly. Now, imagine gluing a lead weight to one side. The top starts to wobble. It begins to thrash. The moon is now wobbling. NASA's LRO has detected a vibration anomaly, and the moon is starting to nod back and forth in the sky. This wobble is tiny right now, but physics tells us it will amplify over time. As the wobble intensifies, it will put immense stress on the lunar crust. This brings us to the latest data from the European Southern Observatory. While we were focusing on the tides, we missed what was happening on the lunar surface. A new crater has appeared on the moon, but here's the twist. Nothing hit it. The crater didn't come from an asteroid or a meteorite. It exploded from the inside out. This is the latest chapter in the ongoing crisis. The moon is cracking, and it's not just a minor fissure. This is a structural failure of a planetary body. The lunar crust is breaking apart from within. The spectral analysis of the dust cloud from the explosion has revealed something even more disturbing. The light reflected off the debris didn't show the typical composition of lunar rock, silicon, oxygen, and iron. Instead, it revealed an unmistakable signature of something else, helium-3. For decades, we've known the moon has trace amounts of helium-3 deposited by the solar wind, but these were just microscopic amounts. What we're seeing now is a massive plume of pure helium-3 venting from the moon's surface. This is a game changer. Natural geology does not create pressurized reservoirs of helium-3 inside a dead rock. If this is natural, our understanding of lunar geology is wrong by a factor of 1 billion. If this is not natural, then 3I Atlas didn't just move the moon, it unlocked it, and it triggered a release mechanism. Think about the implications. A comet arrives, uses directed gravity to pull a moon closer, stresses the surface, and suddenly releases the most valuable energy source in the solar system, the fuel for future fusion reactors. Is this a mining operation? Is 3I Atlas harvesting resources, or is it something far worse? Because the venting is accelerating, the plume of helium-3 is now visible to amateur astronomers using backyard telescopes. As the gas vents, the moon's mass is decreasing, destabilizing its orbit further. We are witnessing a celestial body unravel in real time, and the object responsible, 3I Atlas, has just changed course again. It is no longer tracking toward the sun. It has turned. It is now heading directly toward Earth. Let's take stock of what we know for certain. The moon is 2,000 miles closer to Earth. The tides are defying every model NOAA possesses. A localized gravitational field has been verified by 3 space agencies. The moon's surface is venting pure helium-3. These are not theories, these are documented observations. But there's one question that remains unanswered. Why expose the core? If you wanted to destroy the moon, you would hit it with kinetic energy. You wouldn't gently pull it closer and crack it open like an egg. The answer to this question will determine everything. If this is a natural event, then physics as we know it has collapsed. If this is a mining operation, we are witnessing a Type 2 civilization harvesting resources in our own backyard. But if this is a prelude, if moving the moon was just a test for moving Earth, then the 4-0-foot tides are the least of our worries. As you watch this, 3I Atlas is accelerating. Its new trajectory brings it into Earth's orbit in exactly 18 hours. The telescopes are pointed, the detectors are alive. The moon was a lock. 3. Atlas just found the key. Whatever is inside that venting crater, we're about to meet it.